We have speaker number 2, Sam Knickerbocker, who is
Do you
ready,
have evaluation?
who will be evaluated
Printed it out,
by,
but didn't have
the speech evaluated by Amy Roberts. Please welcome Sam Knickerbocker.
Sure. The purpose of the speech is for me to give this speech, be evaluated, and then come back and give it better, the same speech. So
Okay.
that's the goal.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. We all have instances in our lives that I would consider latent experiences. These experiences I'm going to label as the 3 key moments. I'm going to give them a description name, and then as I speak and share these stories with you, if you could think about in your own life what these are to you. The first one is empowerment. The second would be enlightenment. And the third is independence. When I was very young, I would give myself 0 to 6 years old. We, as a family, did not live in the best conditions or situation. There was a lot of there was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of verbal abuse and physical abuse. And we were just in poverty as far as our tangible things. And as a result, I often did not feel very valued or loved or cared about, or that I knew that I had a purpose. Occasionally during the summer months, I would spend a few days on and off with my grandfather, who lived in the next town over. And this particular day, I was about 5.5 years old, and we had been working long in the garden, getting all the weeds and everything, putting them up into the back of his little red Ford Ranger truck, solid metal. That thing's lasted, still around today. He's been dead for like 3 years. This truck really doesn't die. We should all buy one. No, that's not the purpose of this. Got it all loaded into the back there, and we made a trip out to the dump where we were to go and unload it. I was the younger of the 2 of us, so I jumped in the back of the truck, and I was throwing all this stuff out. And then on our way home, we were conversing, and I don't really remember a lot of this conversation, except for one part. And that is, my grandfather reaches over and turns down the radio a little bit. And then he leans over and he says, "Samuel, you have one of those voices that people just would love to listen to, like a radio voice or a speaker. You have a voice that is just easy on the ears, and somebody would love to listen to that voice." I don't remember what I said after that. He turned the radio back up, and we went on our way. For me, that was the first moment that I remember personally of being empowered, feeling like I had a purpose and a goal in life. To this day, it still leads me a lot. That's one of my life goals, is to be a speaker, to be able to speak in front of many, many people and change lives through my voice. I never wanted to be a radio star, so I may go a different route. The second, though, is enlightenment. And we all have different periods of enlightenment and what that might look like. For me, again, our house growing up, our situation, was fairly abusive and controlling. And as a result of that, survival techniques set in, and I chose to mimic the way I was being treated. And so often I would bully my siblings, I would instill fear and get things done around the house. I thought I was being helpful. It was not out of malice to hurt anybody, but out of let's get things done. And often I would impose my will on my siblings if they weren't doing what I thought they should be doing. This one experience sticks out to me though, and that is my oldest brother, not my oldest, one of my older brothers, Rex, came home from college, and he was in the next room over, and I was trying to force my brother that's just older than me, Gabe, to let me sleep on his bed. And he's like, "No, this is my bed." "Well, I'm bigger than you and I can control you, so I'm going to sleep on your bed tonight." So this was the argument that we were having, and I was winning as far as like physically. I was bigger than my older brother. And then in comes Rex. And after a little struggle, he separates us, and he just holds me to the point he's grabbing my limbs, to the point I cannot move at all. I'm struggling, and in my mind, it felt like 2 hours. I'm sure it was not 2 hours, but in my mind, as a 10, 11-year-old kid, it felt like this is forever that I was being held. And we were having this conversation, Rex and I, because he's telling me, look, this is done. I put up with it for too long, letting you do this to my younger brothers and sisters, and you're done, Samuel. And for me, it was still not clicking until he said, Samuel, this is how, like this restricted, you can't move, this is how people feel, that your brothers and sisters, this is how they feel when you walk in the room. That they can't do anything, they can't move, they can't think, they can't speak without you controlling them. And that was my period of enlightenment. I always saw myself as a charitable, loving individual who wanted to help people, wanted to help things get done. I never saw myself as an abusive, anger-filled, controlling person. But that burst of enlightenment has changed the trajectory of my life and changed my ultimate goal, to instill gratitude, confidence, and peace in individuals' lives. So from that one enlightenment of experience, it's guided me through to where I am today, and if I will stay on that path. The last is independence. And so we've been empowered, we've been enlightened, but where does independence come in? We were homeschooled, and I have never been one for being told how I'm going to learn. I think that's the best way to say it. And there came a point that when I was 11 years old, I came to my mom and my dad and I said, I am not writing another paper. I'm not doing any more homework. That's not me. It's not happening. And they said, if you're not going to do that, then you need to go get a full-time job. And you might think, you're 11 years old. That's not really a possibility. I was not taking homework as my only answer. And in a small town in Idaho, thankfully, I found this person who probably was not doing what was legal. I'm not sure.
Yes, you are.
But I started working full-time in a honey extracting plant for $5 an hour. And I've worked full-time since. I did go to college, but I've always worked. And I gained my independence that day and decided I'm no longer going to have my life dictated to me. I'm going to make my life what it needs to be. So I'd just like you to ponder in your own lives what those experiences are. When were you empowered, and who did it for you? When were you enlightened? What was that experience like? And who helped you through that process? And when did you gain independence? Who showed you that you were worth independence? Think of those, write them down, maybe share with whoever those individuals are, and I promise it will brighten their day. Thank you.